Why are Flower Mound homes for sale dropping their prices? Is the market crashing? If you want to sell your home with confidence and get top dollar and make sure that you're not just sitting on the market, well, stick with us because this video just might save you for some pretty costly mistakes.
We're Bret and Molly Chance, owners of Texas Home Life Realty, right here in Flower Mound. And for over 20 years, we've been helping local families sell the smart way, avoid costly mistakes, and help them move on to their next chapter of life successfully. And we'd really like to help you do the same.
Which is why we want to talk to you about the real reason these Flower Mound homes are dropping their prices. So let's jump into what is the first big reason that you're seeing of why these prices are dropping on some of the Flower Mound homes for sale.
Really, one of the biggest reasons is because the homes haven't been properly prepared up front. And it's not because people are being careless. Sometimes they've just not been given the information that they need to be set up for success with a solar home.
Yes, I totally agree with that because we've been in some homes and there's typically three things that we're seeing right now in this preparation that these home sellers are really missing the mark on, and these are the ones that we're seeing having those price drops. So what are the three things that you and I have been talking about a lot as we're seeing these homes?
Well, one of them is the curb appeal of making sure it is showing just spot on, of having all the landscape done, and also making sure the cobwebs are clean, windows are clean, and that just really gives a very good impression having all that done. And the second part of that is cohesive paint colors throughout the house. And then the last one is actually making sure the home is decluttered, because the thing of it is that I've been in homes where it's been staged. However, the sellers have not taken their personal effects off or out of the house. So it makes the buyer have a very hard time envisioning their stuff being in the home, because that's the thing. If the home basically kind of needs to be a blank slate so the buyers can be able to envision their stuff in the home in order for them to feel safely to move on to bring an offer.
There's a house that you and I went into recently in Tour 18. Beautiful home, but we were so surprised. It was a broker open that we were invited to. It was exclusive broker open. And as we're walking up to this beautiful home, we noticed clearly that there had been nothing done on the landscape. They didn't have any mulch. There were dead plants and bushes out there. And I think that's one of the things that people don't really necessarily know. And I think they're being maybe misguided by their agent as well. It doesn't even take that much to just literally have, a landscaper come in, put some fresh mulch out, take out the old dead bushes, put maybe some new flowers in to freshen it up. That goes such a long way.
Really, the seller needs to put themselves in the buyer's shoes. So they need to be thinking, okay, what are the things that need to be done in order to really wow that buyer, to help them bring a strong offer, and to really just, have that emotional attachment to the home, or have the buyer help that emotional attachment to the home.
Agreed. And unfortunately, I think, we shouldn't put too much of it on the homeowner. People don't sell their houses usually very often, and they're looking to their professional agent to tell them like, hey, what do I need to do? And that's a big one. And I think, you touched on the paint colors throughout. I'm seeing this a lot in Flower Mound, and I don't know what's going on here, but you'll have an older home, say, and I say older as in maybe 20 years old, where you have, more of the warm tones in the house, but they've gone in and they've put this light gray paint throughout, or dark gray paint even, and they haven't done anything else. So you have these warm tones in their flooring, in their counters and cabinets, and it's this huge thing that it just stands out like a sore thumb. Whereas stagers do this all the time, where they'll come in and do, just a color match with what needs to be done. It's very inexpensive, but it can be a huge thing. Instead of somebody seeing, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to come in and paint, and the seller's thinking, oh, I've just spent money on paint. And, unfortunately, but I've seen a taupe color that can match between the updated grays and the warmer tones so well that it just blends. It makes a huge difference. Well, let's jump into the second reason that you're seeing some of these price drops in Flower Mound.
Well, the second reason is really not trending the market and following what the market is doing, because we're going back to a more normal market, because COVID market was definitely an unhealthy market with the home price is spiking so quickly. We've never seen that before. So right now it feels really uncomfortable. But the fact of the matter is we're just leveling out. And that's just because the markets are always moving. The agent coming in really needs to be able to help explain to the seller how to track the market and trend the market where it's going to, meaning that, okay, you've got to look at homes that are actually on the market right now, ones that are under contract, and then ones that have sold recently within, say, the last 90 days, and at the very most, maybe 6 months. Because right now we're seeing the pricing is that it's last year's market or even year before market pricing, and the market is not supporting that. So therefore, that's why we're seeing the homes do large price decreasing, because it's not matching the pricing and condition that the buyers are expecting right now, because the buyers expectations have really changed, and it changes when the market changes. Because during COVID, they were just lucky or happy to get a home, and it really, didn't matter that much about condition to some extent. But now, as the market has shifted and the buyers are saying, okay, now I've got to spend X dollar for the house, and it still needs, certain repairs done and all that, they're not willing to really go for it. They're waiting for the homes that are in good shape, and then they're going to bring those solid offers. The agent needs to be able to come in to be able to explain that and to help the seller track that market. Because the thing is, when the home sits there and it doesn't get any showings, that's really putting that seller at a great disadvantage and costing them money down the road. Because studies have shown the longer the home is exposed to the market, the less that home will sell for. So it's really critical to hit that pricing right up front to be able to hit the home run to get it sold. And I'm not saying you have to underprice it at all. I'm just saying you got to price it within the market range that the market is supporting. Because we as agents, we don't set the market. We interpret the market to bring that information to the seller to be able to say, okay, this is what the market is supporting, and this is the range that we need to be within. And then it's up to the seller to make their choice of what introductory price they want to put the house at to put it on the market.
If you want to avoid these types of surprises and make sure that you know what's going on in the market, sign up for our Flower Mound Weekly Insider email that we send out every week, every Tuesday, so that you can see what's selling, what homes are brand new to the market, and what homes are reducing their price. We even put in a featured home for that week. So be the first to know what's going on. You can click on the link below, get signed up today. And let's jump into the third reason that homes in Flower Mound are reducing their prices.
Really, the third reason is pricing with the wrong information. And I know we talk about pricing, a lot of pricing up front, but also, right now what we're seeing is the seller says, well, I need to have X amount of dollars out of the house because of, money to be able to go buy a new home, or, we put a certain amount of money in improvements. We need to make sure we recoup all that we've invested. Or, they feel like, well, just because, a Zestimate says fill in the blank, it should be worth that. Well, here's the thing is that, like I said, we don't set the market. The market is the market. We just interpret that, and that's what market value is. So when you put your house on the market, it's a commodity. Just like if you were to buy stock in a stock market, if you bought it at $50 a share and that's what it was trading at, a year later you want to come back and sell it, it's trading at $30 a share. You're going to sell at $30 a share. So it's all market driven. And the thing of it is that the seller, again, needs to be able to put themselves in the buyer's shoes. Because, the seller can say, well, I got to have X amount out of this house. But then the buyer comes in and they start asking questions. Why is the house priced where it's at? And, they find out that the seller's wanting to recoup all their investment. And the buyer's like, well, compared to all these other homes that we're looking at, they're looking for the best value that they can get for the money in the best condition. They're like, that's not lining up with what we're seeing. And so that buyer is not willing to overpay to help the seller out. And, the thing is, the seller would not want to do that on their buy side on that. So it's really adjusting expectations as well and explaining the market.
Yeah, unfortunately, in what I'm overhearing your conversations with some of these listing agents, that it's crazy to me how they're arguing for a price on a property for their seller that's unattainable. It has no backing with it. There's no data, there's no numbers for it. We had a listing that we recently sold. There was another home for sale across the street that was up for sale when we listed ours, still up for sale months later. This home has been sitting on the market for months. And in the description, it says that the seller has a job relocation. They're motivated to sell. And yet the agent told you, and he even wrote it in the property description, that a house down the street sold for X amount last year. So therefore, they should get this price that they've put on their home. And it's just sitting there. No showings, no offers, but this agent is adamant that this house should be worth this amount. And it honestly, it's frustrating to me. It makes me angry. I feel like, that guy, should get fired. He should lose his job because he is not reading the market correctly, and he is doing harm to his clients by not telling them the truth and not understanding. Maybe he truly doesn't understand how to read the market. If he doesn't, he needs to get educated because he's costing them thousands and thousands, not only thousands of dollars, but he's costing them stress, time, money, energy, because he's not telling them the truth about what's going on in the market and helping them price. They could have sold for more money had they priced it correctly to begin with. Now they're just losing. And so that's why we're seeing some of these homes, not all, but some of them with these price drops because they were unrealistic to begin with. And some agents, unfortunately, either don't know how to read the market or they're too afraid to tell their clients, hey, this is really where your house should sell, which to me is another huge mistake because there are some sellers, if they need a certain price and the market will not bear that right now, then if they can, they should just wait, stay until they get more equity, the appreciation goes up, and then they can sell possibly for their price next year, 5 years from now, whenever that is. Just hang on to it if you don't have to sell right now. It's better than sitting on the market with there's no way it's going to sell.
Yeah, because the longer that home sits, you're putting the seller's putting themselves in jeopardy. Huge. They're very exposed on the deal, and it's not right and it's not fair. No question about it. Because, just because somebody feels like it should sell for X price and there's no data to support that, then you're at an impasse, because just because you feel something doesn't mean that's what the true reality of the matter is.
Because the buyers are looking at the same information. As a matter of fact, there was another house that you called on recently and you asked the listing agent, he was adamant that the house should sell for this price. And you said, can you send me where you're getting your numbers from? He never did. And that house is going to sit on the market. It's been on the market for months. They took it off. He advised them to put it back on when school got back in session, because that's the reason it didn't sell. Hogwash. That's such bogus information, and it breaks my heart. It makes me angry. Sellers are getting the wrong information, and their lives are being turned upside down. They're being stressed out. They're losing money because they put their trust in the wrong person. And, that's just my 2 cents worth on that. But that is one of the reasons why that we're seeing some of these price drops, because the homes that are priced correctly, they're presented well, they're staged well, all these things, those homes are still selling in Flower Mound for top dollar.
Yeah, because when you look at the homes that have been priced right, the average days in the market in all price bands is 26 days.
Wow. That's not what you're seeing on the snippets.
And that's what you're not seeing on the snippets of the sound bites of social or in the media, wherever you're getting your information from, because they're saying, oh yeah, the world's crashing. You got to look at all the details. It's not. We're balancing out. We're in a very healthy market. And so, yes, there are some pockets outside of Flower Mound that are struggling, and there's so many different variations that are factors that go into that, but you've got to be able to read the market to know, okay, is it in the best interest for the seller to sell? If not, then it's not. And be willing to have those conversations and open-ended, making sure they've got all the information so that they can make the best decision for them and their family in whatever situation that they are in.
And once you do sell, buying your next home in Flower Mound comes with its own set of challenges. As you're seeing, there are some homes in Flower Mound that are still overpriced, and you want to avoid overpaying. So check out our next video where we're going to walk you through the same steps that we walk our clients through, so that you know for sure how you keep from overpaying for a home in Flower Mound.